The thing is, when you find the right person, they're gonna love you no matter what. At the end of the day, it's not your fault. Yeah, it's scary, but if that person really loves you and appreciates you and wants to be with you, they're gonna make the effort to stay with you and possibly be there through the worst for you. But at the end of the day, if that person runs away because of just of the possibility, they're not the right person for you. Because it's still not the same. What if you got cancer? Are they going to run away then? Do you know what I mean? Or if they got cancer, would you run away? Would they want that? No. So they're the wrong people for you. You've just got to take it as it comes, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we're going to talk about HD and dating. This video provides great advice. How would you suggest beginning conversations around HD and being at risk for someone you are interested in? And we can start with Erica.
That video was so adorable, so cute.
Right?
I love it. It was so great. I'm like, I can't help smiling like that. Yes. When it comes to these conversations, I think there's a big weight on this being a burden to someone else, and this being a burden that we are carrying, and we don't want to affect another person by dumping this on them. And I think we do need to internally, as a society and as a community, start changing that conversation of, this is something that's unique. This is my own personal experience, and it is an intimate part of me. And I get to choose when I get to share that to somebody else. And they are the lucky ones if they get to find out about this part of me, because this is part of me. This is family. This is me. And being somebody who is at risk, if you do have somebody who is even the thought of you having this possibility of this illness when you don't even have this diagnosis yet, that just might not be the best person for you, especially in the future. And for some people, it depends on their communication style. Some people want to be right up front, honest. While it's also, I personally would prefer maybe giving it a little bit more time, getting to know that person, and you making that decision on when to bless that person with that information and allowing them to have that little window into your life, because that is you have that control. And so it's not this burden that you're putting on somebody else. It's something that you're blessing somebody else to get a little view, a little insight into your life. And they can either run or they can come back, and they can be stronger for it. But I think we do need to change that idea of, this is a burden that I'm putting on somebody else, because you're a human being. You're made of a lot of different, wonderful, amazing things. And you don't show up and say, I'm at risk, and that's my entire identity, because it's not.
So I'm hearing that there's no playbook, but there are some people who, when they're dating, they'll wear that t-shirt that says about HD, and that's their jive. That's their thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think really hearing what Erica has to say, that there's no right way, but this is your information. So there are some people who want to wait a few times before, as they're dating somebody, to say, I have some important information. The red flag, I think, for me, is when someone says, I'm waiting for this person to fall in love with me, and then I'm going to spring this on them and see what their reaction is. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, think about your reasons for doing that. So that might be a red flag in terms of, that person is feeling this way, then they're not going to leave me, because that's an insecurity that person who is positive for HD might have. And it might be really helpful to talk to a therapist about, tell me about your reasons for doing that. So there's no playbook, but I love that, turning things around, that you're going to be blessed with this information. I think that's a really great way of reframing this.
Yeah, I do love that. I haven't heard that.
Me either. Yeah, it's a very vulnerable state, I'm presuming, and I think that's absolutely true.
And I think we have a lot of friends that are in the dating and have HD. They're gene positive. They're not symptomatic. This is a huge talk we have all the time. And I was talking to a dear friend of mine, and he was saying he waited, and then he told the other person, and the person got mad. And the person was like, you should have told me, and you should have this should have not been that. And I looked and I said, this is so awesome that he yelled at you. And he's, what do you mean? And I'm all, he just showed you he is the wrong person.
Yep.
Sometimes those things are the unanswered whatever to show you that this person's not going to be your ride or die and stand by you through anything. Like even he says cancer.
Yeah,
It-
it could be anything.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you meet that person, you have this immediate bond, this relationship, and you get into some of those, they say the religion and politics, staying away from that, whatever. But it's like you could meet a person and you just fall deep into this conversation and it might naturally come up and it's just this beautiful reaction. But if you have somebody reacting in that way, like you also have to protect yourself and know that's a possibility. It might happen, but they're not going to be that person for me in the future.
yeah.
So I have 3 daughters, and one of them is obsessed with The Bachelor. And we like to call this the Bachelor phenomenon, right? Any relationship can do great when the real world is not part of the picture, when you're all fun all day long. And that's what early dating is, right? But that's not real life. And The Bachelor ends, and then the couple needs to go out in real life. And how often does it actually turn into marriage that's long term? And that's because they met under not real circumstances, and they didn't have the stresses of what happens in real life. And so this is just one other perturbation on that long road of life, and it's to figure out if that person is right for you or not. And this is much more in Bonnie and Erica's ballpark, but just a couple observations. I have seen people that HD doesn't show up from a symptomatic perspective until 50s, 60s, or 70s, and someone who's 20 is putting that burden on them that I can't date because I'm going to get HD someday. And that might be 40 or 50 years off. Seriously, Lord have us all if we are not further along in terms of our treatments by that point. But I think that people think about the far future today when it's not necessarily appropriate. And the reverse I've seen as well, where people wait too long to say that they are at risk for Huntington's disease. I had one patient who actually began having symptoms in his early 20s. They got married and had a kid. And then he said, oh, by the way, I have Huntington's disease. And that turned into a bit of a disaster. I think timing is important to consider in this situation as well.
Absolutely. Okay, our next question is for Bonnie. How do you prepare yourself for a possible breakup or disinterest after telling someone of the possibility of HD?
Yeah, and I think we touched on this, that it really is, first of all, a question of not framing yourself as damaged goods. Okay, so that comes up so much for people. That's just that same burden that I'm going to be a burden on somebody. But we talked about this. It was interesting, the story that you told, Katie, just in terms of this person getting angry. It's like, why didn't you tell me? Because my first reaction was, I thought he was saying, why didn't you tell me? Because why did you tell me now? Because I would have wanted to be there for you. I wanted to. So it was interesting that it was actually the opposite, that it was like, this is information and I'm out of here, versus this is information. And please know that if you're ever going through anything like this, you can always come to me. So I think it is, again, as the video said, that we can all be in a situation that there's something that comes up, whether it's cancer, whether it's an injury, whether it's another type of illness. So being able to say and be vulnerable, somebody used that term, to say, I need to give you this information. I'm feeling a little insecure because I'm concerned that this is going to be the reason that you're not going to stay with me. And I think being honest, because I think people, if you're putting yourself in this situation that I'm damaged goods, I need to be in a situation where I make somebody fall in love that they don't want to leave me, and then I'll sneak this in, but try to do everything I can to make sure that they'll stay with me. Those are all red flags. So I think it really is talking to other people, like Erica said, just being able to say, how did you do this? How did this come up for you, so that you have ideas? Or how did this come up for you? And if you had to do it over, what would you do differently? Or what worked for you? So I think being able to talk to people about this, about the fear of this person leaving, about the vulnerability that you can say to that person, I feel like this might be the end of our relationship, and then being able to hear it out. And if that person does walk away, or if there's a situation that's a red flag and you say, wow, I don't think I can count on this person, really seeking out support from other people, therapy, your support systems, and really trying to work through that.
Thank you. And Bonnie, how do you continue to date and remain positive after someone walks away?
Me personally,
How would
I'm married
somebody-
and I don't have Huntington's in my family. No. So how do you continue all right. So I think it is about, it's so easy to be able to say, no, pick yourself up and just get out there. No, first of all, you have to grieve. Okay. Because that's a relationship. And I think you need to give yourself time to grieve and to say, this hurt. And would I do anything different? Will this help me to make my mind up that maybe after a third date that I decide to bring this up, will I do everything exactly the same? And this just was not, as you said, my ride or die person, or do I need a little bit of time? No matter what, I think that person needs to grieve that relationship and then be able to talk to people about how they can move forward. Because again, you're not damaged goods. We all have something. There's always that tomorrow of, even if it was an accident or an injury, of just not sure if we're going to be on this earth anymore. So I think being able to say, can I grieve this and then know that I can also go out and I am, as Erica said before, a worthwhile person. And I think that's really important to make sure that you get that support and therapy if needed. And it might be adjustment reaction that somebody needs to go and see somebody and get some medications if they're really depressed, if they feel suicidal, talk about it, reach out and say to somebody, I was left and I feel really not good and I feel like I might hurt myself. So reach out to people.
And this community is I'm biased, but this community is like no other. It's a beautiful, connected community. But like Dr. Bonnie said, therapy is huge and it can be huge for people, especially if it is something that's uncomfortable to think about, but it can help develop coping skills and techniques that you had no idea that you had. And at the same time, you can also connect with others within this community who can also shed light and different stories of what they've experienced. And it's maintaining that balance of community, of support, of therapy, if that's the path that you feel like you need to get on, or actually to be proactive if you are going through the dating phase. Everybody needs a little mental tweak and normalizing that, because mental health is it's becoming a larger topic now, but especially during the dating phase. And then you're dealing with HD on top of that. It is okay to seek help and go to a therapist, find the right therapist for you, and helping yourself build on your strengths as you're living this bachelorette life.